Oh, we are, we are.
Well,
We're live.
welcome. Now we're just a few minutes before we go live, but just to recap on what Zoe and I were trying to get over to, it's about the struggles of smaller businesses, about the struggle of catering businesses, because I was I was informed I should be looking at my own career that I grew up in 30 years in, and seeing so many people going out and coming out of it, and the struggles that they've had to come out of it. So by actually having a gentleman on called Dave Ives, who, believe it or not, I didn't know much about him when I first met him, and I followed him from a previous network. And the simple reason is it was his honesty, was his integrity, and why he moved from place to place. And the last one where he moved, he sent a nice message to me. He says, "Fitz, don't bother, just move." We moved, and it was a while before I decided to come back in. But we're not talking about on this session really about what's going forward, about indirect sales, network marketing, whatever you want to perceive it. It's really about Dave's Ives story.
And the impact that you, Dave, have had on our lives. Like Fitz said, someone with huge integrity and a massive part of our business life and our personal life. And that often happens within this industry, that you have massive crossovers with people, and there are some people that you link with that you're never ever going to let go of. And Dave, you have an amazing story, which is what we're on here for this evening. We want to hear your story about how you were broke, but you weren't broken. And I have heard the story many times, but there was last year that you stood up on stage and you went even further. And it is the only time I've ever seen you close to tears, because you were so connected to that story and the impact that it has on your family's lives and everyone else around you. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time, because we only have a short time this evening, and I want this platform to be for Dave.
Well, first of all, dear friends of mine, Fitz and Zoe, thank you for having me on. And Fitz, you said something that's quite bizarre, really. We're not going to talk about the future, but how did we find ourselves in this space? But, in this space of network marketing, if you do move from a company to a company, people think there's something wrong. But as a chef, when I left one restaurant and went to another restaurant, no one ever said anything. They never said, "Oh, have you changed your mind?" No, maybe the restaurant wasn't doing well and I need to find another position, or maybe I was offered a better position. But no one ever judged that. But one thing I did learn rapidly after catering college and entering the hospitality arena is I just didn't want to turn vegetables. That commie chef position. I know we got to all start at the bottom, and in network marketing, you've got to start at the bottom, and that's why it's a side gig initially, so you don't jeopardize any primary income. But I knew I just wanted to be a business owner. And back many years ago at 19, 20, I bought a church and converted it into a bar. Now, the irony of that is that I wasn't a person of faith back then. I am today, and I cringe at the thought. We used to do Saturday night baptisms, but it wasn't of the people that gave their life to Jesus. It was because they were so drunk they fell into the pulpit, and they were baptized by the alcohol spirit and not the Holy Spirit. But I had my first taste of money in the catering industry, working long hours, and you didn't mind working long hours because if you paid a lot. But then there was a lot of things that started to transpire that my upkeep became my downfall. And you know this, you guys do this daily. It's very labor intensive.
Yeah.
So people think the more labor you have, the more money you must make. And it actually doesn't always work in that equation, because you've got more overheads, you've got more liabilities and insurances. And so I moved out of the industry as regards to working for someone, and I found myself, fast forward 20 years, working for other people in this space of hospitality. And I just had that brain wave of an idea, like you guys, many caterers do, is I'm going to buy my own restaurant. And I bought my own restaurant, and you guys have created such a brand in your region in Plymouth. But I bought a derelict Little Chef restaurant. The very same restaurant that Jamie Oliver used for his program called 15. So the little chef didn't make it work. Jamie Oliver couldn't make that location work. And yet I went and invested nearly 400,000 in a derelict location. And I should have thought of those three important words: location, location, location. But I'd already committed myself. I was in. I had already borrowed the money. I had to go and get staff, and I did very well in regards to I turned it around and I opened a 90-seater restaurant. And and you know what it's like when you are moving forward, when things are progressing, and you're not taking any money yourself, but you're eating secondary food dinners that have been out of stock control, and you think you're living high life. And people think, if I just had a business like you, and you're thinking, you don't want to go to bed and not sleep like me. You don't want to be drilling the numbers and running through the plays just to get through the week. But as that happened, I did two things with my restaurant. It was a 90-seater restaurant, and we had an outside corporate catering business. And it was all going well until COVID. And then the upkeep became my downfall. And prior to that, where my location was, it was on a dual carriageway. And it was on a service station area. And the highways agency shut down my slip road for 18 months. But the bank still wanted their payments. And so even back then, I had to start to get rid of staff that I still had to start working for the same amount of 4 or 5 staff. And so the business owned me. I was working in my early 40s, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the hospitality industry. I just didn't love the amount of time I had to do it for. 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so that's my start of my story. I found myself actually owning a business that owned me. But I couldn't see any way out other than I was just really working, trying to create enough volume to create enough money to pay my liabilities. And if I got through that week, if I got through that month, I could breathe to prepare myself to go again. And I think a lot of people find themselves in that place, not just in hospitality, but in many industries where they realize that the profit margin has been decreased, it's been eroded, and now we're just working for other people to pay bills.
I mean, what was the change? I mean, because I know there was some health bits that really affected you. And I know the story, part of the story. Was that the pinnacle point that you had to do something? Because for me, that balance of business, your child, your family, most people would have said, bugger it, I've had enough. I'll go on the dole, I'll keep in with my friends and mothers and walk away. But something really happened, which I really want you to say what happened, because it was my turning point when I first heard that story. And now that I know you, and it was a turning point where Zoe had a few tears in her eyes when she heard you on stage.
I think we all get in a point in our life. I was 44, nearly 14 years ago. And whether it be health, whether it be finances, I think it's an inbred nature of humans that we don't do anything until our back's against the wall. Mm. And even though I was working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, I thought I could get out of it. If I just worked hard. And then I remember a friend of mine say, working hard in something that's broken, you'll just work hard in it. And my restaurant was broken. My particular restaurant was broken. My rent was going through, or my lease was going through the roof, my liabilities. And so my health went on the back burner. Now, we all say health's a priority, and I'm a chef by profession, not as good as Fitz Spencer, by the way. But and by the way, I never cook at home anymore either. My wife is better cook than I am. And if she's not cooking, we got the Spencers across to do it for us. But the reality is, I had a restaurant that was not open anymore because the highways shut the entrance. So I had a 90-seater restaurant. The only thing I could do is I had 4 hot American sandwich vans that I used to get in at 4 a.m., make up all the fresh produce and send it on to the biggest industrial estate. So, and then when people did sneak into our restaurant, I had to have 1 or 2 staff on just to cater for them. And what happened was I realized that I was working from 4 a.m. in the morning to midnight. And I would literally, this is bizarre, isn't it? It's my business. I'm paying a fortune to run my business. I'm making a little bit of money to pay my liabilities and the staff I did have on, because I felt responsible for their lifestyles.
Right.
I mean, I employed them. I sold them a dream. And now, but the thing is, they weren't taking the risk with me.
Yeah.
Right? They could go home at night and maybe they'd be emotionally attached, but they had no liability.
Having staff is the biggest hook, isn't it?
Right.
To keep you down, keep you there.
And the thing is, sometimes we've got to remember that our goal is to serve ourselves first. Because if we go broke in the process, which I did, I had to go bankrupt. The reality was my health went down the pan, and I was feeding at my time. And people say, Dave, you don't understand. I can't go after my goals, my dreams, my business, whatever it may be, because I'm a parent, I'm single, I got a job. I had a business that owned me, it was killing me. I had a 1-year-old baby and a 16-year-old son at home. I was actually having my 16-year-old son watch my baby because I had to go to the wholesalers late at night to get it all back to the restaurant to prep it for 4 a.m. And all of a sudden, I got so heavy, I got up to 22 stone. And I'd never actually ate. I don't know if you can relate to this, but you graze in catering.
Yeah.
Right. All of a sudden, my joke, it wasn't funny, but it is looking back, is it was a Little Chef restaurant that I purchased. So it wasn't a Little Chef restaurant as regards to operating. I branded it my own brand, but I use that as a story, is that I became a big chef in a Little Chef. And I got up to 22 stone. And one day I collapsed and went into a coma. And that was my wake-up call. And after 11 lumbar punches, after 3 days in a coma, I said my 1-year-old daughter deserves a dad until she's prepared for life. And I knew catering clearly wasn't providing it for me at that time. And I wish everybody, not catering, not entrepreneurship, but I hope people find a reason to change before the reason finds you and makes you change. Because it's always better to build it in an enthusiastic mindset as opposed to desperation.
Yeah.
And that's where I was in 2013. I found myself in bankruptcy, my upkeep and COVID. I couldn't make the payments and I had to go bankrupt. And at 7 years ago, I was feeding, I didn't leave. I had to move out the industry, went on government benefits, and I was feeding my daughter now from food banks. But prior to that, even though my customers were fed well, I was bringing home 2-day-old sandwiches from the sandwich van to feed my family. Because anything that was fresh, I wanted my customers to have it. Because I wanted to have them have a good experience. And you think back on things we do for our customers, you go, well, but you feed yourself last. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept because then we've got to really ask ourselves, are we in business to create a life or have we given up life for our business?
Yeah.
And that's where I found myself in 2013.
I think we had that this weekend. You're talking about feeding your customers before yourself. We fed our customers and our staff and didn't feed ourselves and did the longest hours and did the holiday cover it was a busy weekend this weekend. Yeah. But one of the biggest things, the biggest takeaway that I want anybody that's watching Dave's story tonight is there is no excuse. You've heard this man that he was in a coma. He had a 1-year-old. He was a single parent, weren't you, Dave? Yeah. Single parent, 1-year-old, feeding from the food bank at one point of the life with a 16-year-old son as well. And he still found a way to move forward and create a life that he wanted for his children.
And what was that drive, Dave? Because, do you know, when we approach people within this business, within network marketing, because next week's going to be about that. I know I'm going to drag you on to next week and talk about this side of things.
You didn't tell me that.
You are now. Because the simple reason is because there is always a way, and sometimes we people think that we're being tough or being pedantic when we say there's always a way. What was your way? What made you say, right? I know it was the the comb and everything else. But what made you say, right, I know you've been successful before in direct sales, network marketing. What was it this time that you said, right, this is it. I'm going back in and I'm going to blow it out? Because from where you are now, being a 6+ figure earner, for me, that's a story that will inspire someone to say, I may just have another look at this. I may just have another reasoning for this. So what reason could you give to someone to look at this industry?
Well, I mean, if people are in love with what they do and they are having a life doing it, then you're not going to deter them. You're not going to get them to detach their focus, right? But my focus was clear. I wasn't making any money. I was broke. I was tired. I felt like I didn't have a life, and it was really Groundhog Day. And the reason found me with my health. So I got up to 22 stone, and I said to myself, the only time I did I really have leverage in my restaurant? And I didn't. If my staff didn't turn up, I had to step in. I was the one who always had to be on the floor when they didn't show up. But I didn't make any more money by working harder. I was just covering, making sure we could cover the necessities. And then I thought about the idea of leverage, and I didn't have time. But I started to remember what a very good friend of mine said, Dave, look, no one has more than 24 hours in a day. So Dave, are there people living a better life that you look at and go, not envious, not in with the green eye monster, but not going, I wish I could. But do you see anybody living a better life with better choices and seems to have more time and money than I? And there was plenty, because I most definitely had no time. I was time broke, and I most definitely didn't have any money. But because most of the people I knew didn't have enough money and not enough time, most of them wanted to be in my position because they thought I owned a business. And they didn't equate to the liability. So I just said to myself, I don't know how, but I must. And that was the catalyst, right? I don't know how, but I must. And when I made that decision, you start to open your thinking to possibilities. Because if you don't make a decision that you want to look, then you're not going to be open to alternatives.
No, I wasn't lowering my hand. I just had my hand inside. I didn't notice it. But just before we close, Dave, I mean, I know you've looked at other things before you actually came into network marketing. But what was the category of why people should not prejudge, but to look at this? And what are the 3 tips from someone who's maybe looking it's coming again? Someone who's never known about network marketing, never tried of it. What would be your 3 tips? What you've worked with, what you've done, what made you the person that you are now? And guys, if you was to see the home, he's still building, and the way he puts out for his team, what would them 3 bits be for someone looking in now? What would you say? Number 1, number 2, number 3?
I would say is understand it's a profession. Now, many of us are going to look at it as maybe a get-out clause, as a side hustle, but it can very quickly become a professional status for us. And so my business, you talked about, being a 6-figure, 7-figure earner in my past. And I think about my catering days and go, well, I was a 6-figure investor to make 4 figures. Here, I invested 4 figures to make multiple 6 figures, and no staff, no liability, no overhead. So the first thing is, if you treat it like a hobby, that's why most people fail. If you treat it like a business, and that it costs just as much as my real restaurant, maybe I would even build faster because I had more on the line. The thing about this industry is, if you get in and do something, you'll make something. If you get in and do nothing, you'll make nothing. But if you get in and do a lot, you can change your life. But the great thing about it is you don't have to jeopardize the primary income. That's a necessity. You need that. So if you're a chef, if you're a commie, if you're front of house, if you're a business owner, you don't have to jeopardize any of that. But you do have to carve out time. And I know you guys are doing the same thing, is you're starting to prioritize, okay, now I could do that in my business, but that's only just going to keep me in my business. So if I can actually farm some of these responsibilities out within my staff and then take that time and build my exit strategy, then it's only a matter of time. I don't need that. And so the answer you've asked me is, what would you do? the answer should be reversed and say, why are you doing it? Right? And because that'll be relatable to everybody. The thing is, we want more out of life. We want to wake up when we're done. I don't want the bank manager asking me where the payment is. I don't have to rob Peter to pay Paul, supplier to supplier. I don't want to be a balancing act. And so the reality is, I want to be able to live with less stress on my shoulders. I wanted to look outside and go, oh, the weather's good today. Do I want to be served rather than have to serve? Right?
It's
so there were things that
stress.
Yeah, and there's those little things, right? Peace of mind, harmony in the mind, as Marco, a good friend of ours, would say. But the reality is, you better have a reason, because guess what? In my restaurant, when things didn't work out, I couldn't quit. When things didn't work out and the payments had to be made and I was late on payments or staff, I couldn't go, you know what? I'm down 2 staff today. I'm shutting shop. I'm going to go. No, I had to go. I had no choice. The thing with this side gig, this exit strategy, you've had a bad day at the thing you want to get away from. So when you get home, you put your feet up because you don't feel like building your freedom. The biggest thing is the day you don't feel like building your freedom is the day you should put more effort in. Because the thing you want to get away from is the thing that's slowing you down if you let it beat you on the days you don't feel like doing it.
True.
Yeah. Speak so much truth. And I'm hoping those on the live, I'm hoping those who see the repeat on this, that you can resonate with this. I mean, it's like what I've always said, and this is with me in the corporate world. I used to jump from one job to the other for the actual pay rise. Now, I liked the jobs I had. Then if I thought, hang on a minute, I'm only getting an extra 5, 6, and the most I've got an extra 10 grand a year pay rise. But by the time I've swallowed that up, how much is that? Then within 3 to 4 months, I'm living up to that crack. So I'm back to square one. So why wouldn't I do what you class as a side hustle? Why wouldn't I do what I'm doing? And you asked that question before about looking at what we're doing. Is this for me, what it means for me? Freedom means many things, but one of the things I promised this lady, that I'll create the environment for her to be happy. I'm not responsible for her happiness, but I want to create that environment. Plus I want time with friends. Plus, if I want to turn left on the plane, I'll turn left on the plane. If I want to get up on a Monday morning, open the curtains, wipe my back and go back to bed, that's what I want to do. But it takes time and effort. And this is why we put in this Get Out Clause series of what we're doing, because people need to understand there is a better way out there. It's not perfect, but there is a better way out there. And I'm so proud of being part of an industry that is letting us do that, and being proud of connected to Dave and Shan Ives. It's been fantastic.
Yes, we didn't mention Shan Ives. So Dave is part of a fantastic duo, and I'm going to do a quick plug for this Sunday, the 31st. If you're in the Plymouth area, if you're in the southwest area and you can travel an hour, honky tonk, we're going to be having a Shepreneur, and it is hosted by me, but with 4 phenomenal other ladies, including Shan Ives, who is my North Star, and Dave's wife. So if you're in the area, you have to, events are so powerful when you are there in person. So it's 10 till 3 down in Plymouth. Message me if you need some more information on that one.
And guys, and I want to just leave the last word to Dave before we just switch off and close. Dave, last word.
You know, there are better ways. There are better ways. And sometimes we've got to get our head out of the sand, not look at the everyday, mundane, repetitive aspects that we think we have to go through every day. Now, we still have to do that for a season. But if you just dare to look up and dare to allow yourself the possibility of thinking, because there are people living a better life, healthier lifestyles, having more choices, but they just found a way of leveraging. Now, you don't have to be skilled. I'm most definitely not skilled. You don't have to be intelligent. I don't have any brain capacity to be creative, but I am smart enough to copy someone who's got what I want. Now, as a hospitality chef or as a restaurant owner, if I had decided to open a restaurant in Plymouth and come to Fitz and Zoe Spence and say, hey, look, I want to open a chef. Could you teach me your daily specials? I'm going to be greeted with a pleasantry like bugger off, because I'm going to be in competition. See, in this Get Out Clause, this is about collaboration. We lift one another. We help one another, because if we do that, we succeed together. Now, change that around very quickly. If I came to Fitz and Zoe Spence and said, hey, look, I'm going to open a restaurant on the other side of town. And once you finished your restaurant and closed for the day, would you come and invest an hour in me and teach me your recipes and teach me how to run my business and teach me? But if you do for 12 months, thereafter, whilst I'm still in business, I'll give you 10 to 15% of my monthly sales. Then you've learned the art of leverage. See, most people try to find something and keep it a secret. In this get out clause concept, we've got a secret and we want to tell everybody about it.
Oh, it's so right, guys. Thank you. A little bit over time, Dave, as usual. Thank you. See you at 7 o'clock on the call. And guys, if you're out there, reach out to us with any subjects that we want to go through. I am wanting Dave to come back in a couple of weeks' time to talk about the nitty-gritty of couples. So I'll have both him and his wife on regarding this wonderful business.
I'm glad I got my word in now before we're together.
Yeah. So have a great day, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Take care. God